We hit grades that aren't really seen in this sector. We hit silver grades up to 300,000 grams per ton silver. We hit gold samples up to 935 grams per ton gold. And it wasn't just 2 samples that we found, but 80 plus samples of plus kilo silver, and we feel that our best targets are ahead of us. This latest financing gave us enough to really go out there and get a drill program that was meaningful, and we hope to have the first drill turning 3rd week of January.
Today we're having a chat with Peter Dembicki, CEO of Tier 1 Silver. Peter, it's great to have you on the channel, and what a great time to be looking for silver in Peru.
Thank you for having me, Stein. Pleasure to be a part of your podcast, and looking forward to our chat. It's a great story, and it's a great time to tell the story.
Definitely. Very excited to dive into your roadmap for 2026. You have some great plans outlined, but before that, I think we should zoom out a little bit and talk about your asset for a second. Perhaps, where is it located? What is the target really, and why is it interesting?
Yeah, so for your viewers that aren't familiar with the Tier 1 Silver story, this is a great introduction. We're an aggressive exploration-focused company with our assets based in Peru, in South America. Peru being a fantastic place to operate. It's a great jurisdiction. It's home to some of the largest mines in the world, host to some of the largest reserves of silver in the world, the largest producers of silver in the world. And mining has been a part of this country for centuries and centuries. So, it's a place that our group as a whole is very familiar with. We're comfortable operating in Peru, and we think we found something really special here.
And Peter, if I'm not mistaken, you are in a known trend of porphyry systems, aren't you?
Yeah, well, that's something that we can get to. How this story came to be. So when this company was first spun out of its parent company called Oren Resources back in 2021. Or 2020, our technical team went out looking for the #1 precious metals target in all of Peru. Now we took a look at the landscape in Peru and said, okay, let's set ourselves up here for success. Peru is a really interesting place. It doesn't come without some headwinds politically, community-wise, social-wise, as any country in the world deals with on its own relative basis. But we said, let's stick to the coastline, because we know in the coastline, it's very amenable to mining. It's host to some of the largest mines in the world, such as the Tocopalas, the Quellavecos, the Cojones, the Cerro Verdes that are just within 100 kilometers all to our north. So let's stick to the coast and set ourselves up for success. So our technical team went out there and basically combed the entire southern coast of Peru looking for the #1 precious metals target. And ironically enough, it came back right at Curabaya. Now, it didn't land us on this traditional epithermal belt that we thought it might have, but it put us right in the heart of copper country, right along this prolific copper porphyry belt that, again, is host to some of those largest mines. These mines up to our northwest, are massive. There's a gap in the system where Curabaya hit, and then they start up again in northern Chile. So we're right along this trend of these huge discoveries. But again, we had this precious metals target, which was really intriguing. So we did what any geological team would go out and do. We have a raw piece of land. We went out and we acquired 17,000 hectares of land. It's 100% owned. At the time, the land package was a third owned by Teck, a third by us, and a third owned by an Australian junior. Well, when base metals go down, it's a natural occurrence that the majors, they kind of shed land. They get rid of claims that they're not using. And then when metal prices pick up, everyone's scrambling for land packages again. So we were able to take advantage of that to get Teck's third. That left the Australian junior to do a deal with, because this package really made sense when we combined all three. But the Aussies were very difficult to do a deal with. And eventually, unfortunately for them, they went bankrupt and turned into, of all things, a hearing aid company. And their CFO turned around and called my chairman, Ivan Bebic, and said, I have this piece of land. We have no use for it. Do you want it? And we picked it up at a fraction of the cost that we would have. And we're able to consolidate these thirds. So now we have this great land package, very, very close to the coast, right off the Pan American Highway. And we said, hey, let's go out and see what we got here. So we went out and did, in the natural progression of things, a big rock sampling campaign. Let's see what, if there's anything worth pursuing here. So this is kind of the first stage. And so, in the world of silver and gold, geologists, technical teams, we get excited when we see anything that's 200, 250 grams of silver. That's considered high grade in the sector of silver. Of course, if you find any semblance of gold, you're going to want to go after it. And so the fact that we came back with our first pass of rock samples and we hit grades that aren't really seen in this sector. We hit silver grades up to 300,000 grams per ton silver. We hit gold samples up to 935 grams per ton gold in rock samples. And it wasn't just 2 samples that we found, but 80 plus samples of plus kilo silver, over 2 grams gold, emanating over this 5 square kilometer footprint. So we thought, holy smokes, what on earth did we find here in copper country of all places? So really exciting first step to the company. And for our shareholders that are looking back at the history of the company, this is around the time that we listed our company to go public. And we caught the tail end of what we thought was the high for silver at the time. Silver was trading around $30. The market was moving quite well for juniors and exploration companies. And we listed our company and our share price went ballistic. It went to $1.90 a share Canadian, a $250 million market cap, and we hadn't even brought out the drill yet. So people were obviously very excited about what we could have and the potential for this property. So obviously the next step, you can't just rely on rock samples for your entire company. Let's do the next best thing and further de-risk the project. So we went out and did a robust channel sampling campaign and trenching. And we said, okay, let's see what we can find here that's with actual veins in the ground, not just rock and chip samples. And sure enough, we're able to replicate a lot of those grades, plus kilos silver everywhere, 12 kilos of silver in veins. And we thought, oh my goodness, okay, this really gave us that confidence to go out and bring out the drill. And so we finally did. We came out with a small 5,000 meter program, 16 holes, and it was really just a reconnaissance. Yeah, again, we had a huge land package. At the time, we had a drilling permit called an FTA, which only allowed us for 10 pads, 2 holes per pad, very limited, but it gave us enough of what we needed to do because these holes were spread out by 500 meters or kilometer in space, and we're really just going to go see if there's anything there worth pursuing. And so we started this program targeting these geophysics. We had a big geophysical anomaly, a magnetic anomaly, and a chargeability anomaly that looked like they were deep. We wanted to go test it and see if we could just knock it out of the park on our first drill hole. And those were deep holes, 750, 800 meters in length. And so we pulled these drill holes out. These are our first 2 holes, and there was nothing. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have the shortest tenure as a CEO anyone's ever seen. And everyone's laughing, like, we keep drilling, Peter. We're just one test. I'm like, okay. But we took a pause and we looked at this thing and we said, okay, we got these phenomenal channel samples, incredible rock samples. Let's start drilling short, shallow holes underneath these channel samples and see if we can replicate some of these grades. And sure enough, we started hitting. Drill hole number 6 gave us our first, high grade plus kilo intercept, which was huge. More high grade in drill hole number 9. Drill hole number 16, our last hole of the program, has to be our flagship hole where we have 7 meters of close to 300 grams silver. This is huge. This is economic and great. So we took a step back and said, okay, now we have, over a meter of plus kilo silver and multiple occurrences. This is fantastic. So for the timeline purposes and for people looking at our share price, we said, okay, we have tremendous success. 40% of our drill holes were economic, and this is just in a reconnaissance kind of program. We really want to make sure we weren't falling in love blindly with this thing. So what we did is we hired 2 world-renowned consultants to come down to the property, do a site visit, work with our technical team, say, are we on the right track here? Are we just kind of, following something that we want to believe? And they both came back independently and said, this is a really interesting project you guys have here in the heart of copper country. So again, looking back to all those massive copper producers and silver producers as a byproduct to our northwest, once upon a time, they had a precious metals window sitting on top, but over 60, 70 million years, that precious metals window was eroded and blown away, exposing the copper, leading to an easier discovery and access to the copper, but not much precious metals. What we have is a precious metal system that looks like it's still intact. And so we looked at it and we said, okay, this is interesting. All of our top drill intercepts came within 100, 150 meters of surface, which gives us the indication that we're hitting very, very shallow, but not at depth. So it looks like we're at the bottom of this precious metals window. So where do we go on our property to find more meteor intercepts where this precious metals is still intact? Well, if we go north on our property to this Kambaya corridor, there's another 250 to 500 meters of elevation where we don't see a lot of that erosion occurring, and where we feel there's going to be precious metals windows still intact. And so we ran up there, we did a whole bunch of testing, and we came back with, again, phenomenal channel samples results, plus kilo silver, multiple grams per ton gold, but also the presence of arsenic, which for the technical audience out there gives us that notification or indication that the precious metals window now lies below. So in our first round of drilling, we felt like we're at the basement, at the bottom of the system. All these tests that we did up in the Kambaya corridor, relating to this thesis with elevation, gives us the indication that the precious metals window now lies below. So we feel like we have it trapped, and this is our target for our next drill program. So we took a step back and we said, hey, this is great. But this is right around the time that interest rates started really getting jacked up in 2022, spring and summer. Money for junior exploration companies really dried up. It was kind of scary because we weren't quite sure, what to expect. We kind of thought, hey, this could last, 6 to 10 months. But we were looking at a lot of really good companies that were announcing phenomenal drill results from their projects, and they were getting crushed. People were using it as a liquidity event. Any news was news to sell. And our shareholders, our largest shareholders, looked at us and said, guys, don't drill. Hang tight, preserve your capital, do more work on your project, but don't drill. So in hindsight, was that a mistake? I'm not sure. It's always good to have continuous news flow. And so over the last few years, us trying to recover from that glut of news, that glut of drilling, has led to a depressed share price. But now that silver's poking up, the capital markets are strong for companies like us, we're finally getting back drilling, which is really, really exciting, and we can't wait because we've only done that 5,000 meters. We've only done 16 holes that were very kind of reconnaissance-like, and now we have a target to go after that we're really excited about with plus kilo silver and multiple gram per ton gold channel samples that we're going to be drilling directly underneath, which is really exciting.
That was a great overview, Peter. You took out a lot of my follow-up questions, so appreciate that. We were talking about Kambaya, which is, of course, your next target for your Phase 2 and Phase 3 drilling campaign. You mentioned that it's higher up, and therefore it's better preserved mineralization. Can you explain why that is the case?
Yeah, again, just to further explain what I kind of rambled on about there. So again, when we first drilled, all of our top intercepts came within 100, 150 meters of surface. So we were hitting it very, very shallow, but we weren't hitting it at depth. So where are we going to go to get longer intercepts, wider vein intercepts, where a precious metal system is more preserved? So these consultants came back and said, if you go north on our property, there's less erosion. So the precious metals window has not been blown away and eroded over the 60, 70 million years. Everything's going to be more intact. So if you go up there, do some testing, I think you're gonna find what you're looking for. And so when we ran up there and did some testing, again, we found incredible rock samples. The channel samples were incredible, but also, again, that presence of arsenic, which always indicates that the precious metals window lies below. So we really feel like we have it trapped by going north on our property to higher elevation that has not yet been eroded, and that remains our highest target.
Perhaps we can talk about how specifically you are planning to, skin this cat, research this target.
So I think I'll back up once. Because when we came out with all this information on the Kambaya corridor, it was super intriguing. We're obviously ready to go. We're a silver company with great silver targets ahead of us. But these consultants also came back with something really interesting as well. And they said, we're not sure maybe if you were just so focused on the silver, so focused on the gold, that you might have missed it. Maybe you just weren't looking for it. But remember those 2 deep drill holes that you drilled where you didn't find what you were looking for. Well, we went back and looked at the core of a lot of these drill holes, and it found that the deeper you went, really interesting things started to pick up. The base metals started to pick up. We found the presence of a lithocap, scar and mineralization, porphyritic dikes emanating on surface. There is every indication that you're also sitting on top or very nearby of a large porphyry copper system. So this was really interesting to us, but obviously not totally surprising given where we're sitting on this porphyry belt, that we could have something. And for years, geological teams and companies have been looking over this area, looking for that next big copper discovery, but we went there looking for precious metals. And so I think both groups weren't looking for the right thing. We stumbled upon what could be a large copper system. So it drove a lot of internal dialogue in the company. What do we focus on here? Are we a silver company? Are we a multi, metal company? I think we knew what drives the share price, what drives the value. It's the silver. Silver is sexy. It moves fast. It's volatile. When it's on, there's nothing like it, like we're experiencing right now. But we also have copper now hitting new highs. And these big porphyry copper systems are getting harder and harder to discover in the world. They're sometimes deep. They're buried. It takes a lot to find these things. And like a lot of good geological discoveries, they're not always made on purpose. You go drilling for one thing, you stumble upon something else. So we have that in the background. If we find we're in a spot where we're capitalized, the market's really screaming for us to go test it, we'll go send some deep drill holes down to go see what we really have. But right now the focus is on the silver because we know that we're going to hit something great there. We have multiple results in our back pocket already, and we feel that our best targets are ahead of us. The copper will be a swing. It'll be a test to go see. But we have, over a dozen signed CAs with all the majors operating in South America, many of whom have done site visits and returned site visits and said, we know it's there. We just don't know the depth and the scale and everything. So it's just up for you to test it. And so they're waiting for us to test it. If we succeed, obviously it changes the story. And if we miss, then, it remains a silver story. So very excited for that. So again, leaping back to your question, really is to go target these high grade silver veins that we've uncovered in the channel sampling. And again, to go drilling under, 20 meters of almost 250 grams silver, which includes multiple meters of plus kilo silver and 4 to 5 grams gold. I mean, this is very, very high grade that people should get very, very excited about, because I know we are. So the goal is to keep the program small. We want to preserve capital. The terrain is a little bit tough. The further you go north, it gets a little bit steeper. So we have to build access roads. We want to make sure that we don't become a professional road building company because it can get expensive. And we want to focus our money in the ground in the drill. So we're going to do a small campaign, 1,000 to 1,300 meters of drilling, but we're keeping these drill holes short and shallow to go attack underneath these channel samples, because we really want to return some good results for shareholders in the company.
So really the focus of this campaign is that epithermal target, that gold-silver target like you outlined, and porphyry potentially.
That's correct, yeah. We're going to focus on the silver because we know it's exciting and it's always really been our focus. And we believe this is a really fantastic asset that we have here. And it's a true discovery that we made in our first round of drilling. So let's just go prove it out and create a real silver district here.
Definitely, it makes a lot of sense. And what's the current status of your phase 2 drilling campaign? When do you expect the drill bit to fly in and start drilling?
Yeah, so work has begun and commenced at the site. We could have started before the Christmas break, but then working would have to pause and time takes money. So we said, you know what, January 1st, let's get rolling. So creating the water pools for the drill, access roads, camp is set up, and we hope to have the first drill turning third week of January. So really exciting that we're commencing this. And we can't be more excited to get the drill turning again, because we've been waiting a long time. Our shareholders, our patient shareholders that have been with us for this journey have been waiting a long time. And we're finally getting that drill turning, which is great.
And Peter, how is Peru with Assay Results turnaround times?
Not bad. I don't want to say a certain time frame. We're expecting 3 to 4 weeks at this time. Our first drill campaign occurred during the tail end of COVID. Peru had a really tough time during the COVID campaign, and so everything was really shut down. So that was taking 6 to 7 weeks for results to turn around, but things have improved. Everything seems to be working quite well, so we're anticipating that 3 to 4 week kind of turnaround for first results.
Makes a little sense. This phase 2 campaign sounds very exciting, just extending what you have done before, hopefully finding some high grade targets in that epithermal, shallow, quick turnarounds on the drill bit. Incredibly exciting. Perhaps we can quickly touch base on the team behind this. Who is behind this company, and what is the track record like?
Absolutely. So it's something that that we're quite proud of. This is, as I think I mentioned briefly before, Tier 1 Silver was a spin out of a parent company, Oren Resources. Oren split into 3 companies. The Canadian assets went into a company called Fury Gold. Tier 1 was at the time a very early stage unknown precious metals target in southern Peru. And the third, run by my chairman, Ivan Bevic, is Copernico Metals, which is also in Peru, but focused on a large copper asset, which is doing extremely well. But really the focus of this company lies a lot on our technical team, as it should. Christian Rios is a real important guy here. We were able to poach him from a company called Bear Creek Mining. He was integral in making their Santa Ana Crani discovery, huge silver project in Peru, and worked under the famous geologist David Lowell, who was, prominent person in many silver discoveries and geological discoveries in the world. So Christian's a great guy, not only to have as a geologist on the ground, but helps us with our business development, working with the communities and the contractors, and he's our guy in Peru, and he's based in Lima. And then one other person I'll point to, Antonio Ribas, one of our directors. This is the former head of geosciences at BHP and Newmont Global. So he has tremendous technical prowess when it comes to these systems. And of course, our chairman, Ivan Bevic, who has been a part of multiple successes in his past. To have a guy like that as chairman and being there for support, it's been crucial for the survival of this company and pushing this company forward. So it's a great team. We're small, we're nimble, very experienced, but it's a team that you want to have in charge of an exploration project like this.
Appreciate that, Peter. And you have this slide in your presentation, slide 5, I believe, of your slide deck, where you outline this track record of 2 past success stories. Perhaps you can outline who was behind that as part of your team.
Yeah, so Ivan Bevic, he's a guy that has had tremendous success early on in his career. He went out and found a discovery in West Africa, Keegan Resources, and turned that into a producing asset. To have this kind of turnaround and success for shareholders at such a young age is something that most people in the capital markets get once in their career if they're lucky, as well as geologists. But to turn around and immediately go out and say, hey, let's go do it again, and founded Keegan Resources in Mexico, and was able to sell this project to Agnico before they had even come up with a resource, is truly remarkable. They just kept hitting and found tremendous success that Agnico had seen enough and they wanted to acquire. So to have one in your career is something you hang your hat on. To have multiple discoveries and exits for shareholders along the way is quite unheard of. So his next stage after that was founding Oren, built up a huge land packages in North America and South America, and then in the markets in 2020 decided, let's unlock this value and really focus on the individual assets, which is why was the reasoning for the spin out.
And Peter, I would love to talk about the financials for a second. Of course, during this phase 2 campaign, you're going to do a relatively small drilling campaign to test out this northern, more higher elevated target. I believe you raised $6.5 million in September 2025. How are the finances roughly looking like now, and how far should this take us?
Yeah, so this was a very welcome financing. It came at the right time for Tier 1, but it really gave us that, drilling isn't cheap in Peru, especially where we're located. The biggest headwind we have in our drilling campaign isn't social. It's not weather related, nor is it depth, as you've seen in what we've discussed, but it's the lack of water. So we do have to truck water into the drill bit, which raises the cost of drilling. So this latest financing gave us enough to really go out there and get a drill program that was meaningful. We've had opportunities over the last couple of years to raise small amounts here and there to keep the company going, but it was never enough to really get a drill program done. But timing is everything. We raised that money, and now the environment for silver and for gold and even for copper is phenomenal right now. So that money gets us through well into the spring to allow us to get done what we need to get done, and we're hoping the results lead to more financing so we can keep pushing the drill bit and expand on the drill program.
Sounds like a great plan, and hopefully, of course, you're successful in finding some high grades. Can we talk about the cap table for a second? How does it look like? And for example, insider ownership, institutional ownership, those figures.
Yeah, so this company, although it's a well-known brand, we don't have a lot of institutional ownership just given the stage of exploration that we're at. A lot of institutions will need a resource in place or a profound drilling program to take a stake in the company. The fact that we only have 16 holes, 5,000 meters drilled, it's very early stage. But we've created a really good brand. We have over 15,000 shareholders of Tier 1 Silver. I believe 40% of our shareholders reside in the US and global. We've had a rough go, there's no doubt. You look at our share price, where we've been, but it's really turned around and it's looking really good right now. Our share cap, $258 million out. As a capital markets guy with a background in this stuff, I look at it and say, okay, it's not quite there. I think we have a lot of room to move. Our shareholders are big silver investors, and they want to see this thing get back to more respectable levels. So no consideration of a rollback at this time. But we have some prominent shareholders as well, high net worth individuals, a few small funds, but no large institutions to speak of. It's mostly retail. Inside ownership, I believe, is around 5 to 10%, given the most recent financings that have, pushed our cap table and our share count out there, dilutes people down. But it's a really strong ownership with retail that are very close to us, and these shareholders that have been with us over the last 4 years and 5 years, it's been really meaningful for us to have their loyalty and support along the way.
Thanks for taking us along there, Peter. You mentioned earlier that your biggest headwind is water, and it wasn't the social license. But I would actually love to talk about the social license for a second. How is that for your project specifically, and how is the landscape for mining in Peru in general?
Yeah, so Peru is, for those that are not familiar with Peru, you might read the headlines in the newspapers and see unrest and mining blockages and presidential turnover. There's no doubt that occurs. When I first landed in the seat at Tier 1, there was a presidential election that occurred 1 week after we listed our company. And I thought, oh my goodness, the person that looked like that was going to win was a very, very, socialist leader, Castillo, no political background, former school teacher, but with very, very left-wing leaning principles, and was even speaking about nationalization of mines. It got me quite nervous. But then he gets elected, and you look at the big players in Peru, the big producers, and you say, okay, their stock price hasn't moved, it hasn't collapsed. What's the deal here? And a guy by the name of Ross Beatty, who's also a shareholder in our company, said, politics in Peru is a short-term game, mining is a long-term game. And I believe since I've sat in the CEO chair of Tier 1, I believe I'm on my 6th Peruvian president at this moment. which gives you an indication of turnover. So the way it works in Peru is president sits down, who has gotten a lot of support from rural communities saying how much change they're going to make and how much money they're going to pull from the miners and give it back to the people. But when they realize they get elected, they sit in their seat and they say, oh my gosh, Congress is deadlocked. I'm not allowed to touch the military. I can't rewrite the Constitution. There's not a lot I can do. People then get upset. They get them impeached or removed or reelected, and rinse and repeat. Nothing really gets done. Not great for the people of Peru, but for operating companies and miners, not a lot changes. So again, I've seen a lot of different presidents and different mandates from these offices, and not a lot changes. And to be an exploration company is a lot easier because we're not producing, we're not employing 5,000 people. We're not a big tax implication for the government and revenue producers. So we mostly fly under the radar. The biggest impediment, I think, to turnover politically in Peru is every time there's a new president, sometimes there's a reshuffling of cabinet ministers, which means if you're in the middle of a permit application, sometimes you can get some delays. But we've noticed none of that. And we've always gotten our permits within 4 or 5 months that we've been looking for. The government has been very supportive of us. But really what it comes down to in South America especially is the community that you're doing drilling in. We're very, very fortunate with the Chipspaya community. Again, we have no residences. We have no archaeology impediments. We have no agriculture. There's no livestock. There's very little vegetation. This is Atacama kind of desert foothills of the Andes kind of. So we have very little footprint whatsoever. But the community are also very well known to mining. So they know what's going on. They see the implications that if we hit something big here, the economic impact it can have on their community. Peruvians want jobs, and they want to see their community get to work. So they're very, very supportive of us being there, and they've been very supportive of us over the last 5 years being here to prove this thing out. So we have a community agreement in place, and we'll be employing a lot of their community members in this upcoming campaign and further out than that. So it's a really good setup for us. We really enjoy it, and we've been really supported by our community and the Peruvian government.
And Peter, can we talk about infrastructure for a second, especially near your project? Is there a highway running into it? And what is the cost of drilling like?
Yeah, so this is a really fantastic setup for any exploration company or any future miner for that instance. Like I said, we're based in the south of Peru. We're about an hour and a half out of the city of Tacna. We're about a 45-minute drive off the Pan American Highway, with a 40-kilometer road that goes into our site. Again, we have 2 deep water ports to our west on the coast that service all of those majors to our northwest, hydroelectric to our north, international airport in the city of Tacna. And again, no agriculture, no residences, no archaeology. This is barren kind of desert land where we leave a very small footprint when we're doing our exploration. So it really is a fantastic setup, and all the majors that we've spoken to date have looked at it and said this is perfect. The elevation, as I believe we mentioned before, is 1,500 meters to 2,000 meters. In Peru, that's considered beachfront. That's what the geologists call it, because these guys are used to operating at 4,500 meters in elevation, which makes it a challenge. But this is down near the coast, low elevation, great terrain to work in. So it's a fantastic setup for the company.
Thank you so much, Peter, for taking us along there. Incredible first overview of Tier 1 Silver. Before we leave, perhaps you can reference where people can find out more information about the company Tier 1 Silver.
Yeah, incredible. Go to our website, tier1silver.com. We're traded on the TSX Venture. We're in the OTC for our American investors, and we also have a Frankfurt listing as well for our European investors. But please sign up for the newsletter. You're going to want to sign up to get the latest updates, to find out more about our upcoming drill campaign and results. So it's an exciting time to pay attention to Tier 1 Silver and we urge all your listeners to pay attention.
Excellent, Peter. We'll definitely put the link in the description to your website where people can sign up to the newsletter. And of course, we'll keep the finger on the pulse on this channel as well. Hopefully, we'll talk soon in a couple of weeks' time when the drill bit is spinning.